Hello, everyone, and welcome to another segment of the PF Warriors video series, Lessons Learned, sponsored by FibroGen Incorporated, a leading science-based biopharmaceutical company discovering and developing a pipeline of first-class therapeutics. I'm Shelley Mathis, Executive Director of the PF Warriors International Support Group. We'll be posting these video shorts weekly to educate you on interesting things going on in the world of pulmonary fibrosis and interstitial lung disease. I'm so excited today to be introducing to you a very prestigious member of the FibroGen team. We've been so grateful to have FibroGen support us over the past few weeks, and I'm extremely lucky to be interviewing Dr. Lona Poole, Executive Director of Clinical Development at FibroGen in San Francisco, California, where she offers scientific operational leadership in designing, implementing, conducting, and analyzing complex clinical trials, which she'll discuss today. Dr. Poole, welcome to Lessons Learned. It's so nice to have you join us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Okay, let's get going because we have so many interesting questions for you. But first, please tell us a little more about FibroGen and your role at the company.
So FibroGen is a biotechnology company that develops innovative first-in-class drugs for the treatment of chronic and life-threatening conditions such as anemia, idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis or IPF, Duchenne muscular dystrophy, as well as locally advanced pancreatic cancer. The two main drugs that FibroGen developed leverage the body's natural pathways. Roxadustat, the first and our most advanced therapeutic, is an oral drug that induces the body's natural process of producing red blood cells. It was developed to treat anemia in chronic kidney disease. It has been approved and is actually being prescribed and used in several countries across the globe. The other important molecule is Pamrevlumab. This is an injectable drug that blocks excessive scarring, and it is currently in clinical studies for several diseases where scarring plays an important role, such as IPF. Pamrevlumab is an investigational drug. It has not been approved or is not being currently used in the market. So it has to be first approved by regulatory agencies. So my function, I'm what is called a medical monitor. I am responsible for the development of study protocols. I'm involved in the selection of study sites where the clinical research studies are being conducted. I train the study personnel that conduct the study at their institutions or clinics. I am always available if the study team has questions on the protocol, including patient eligibility. They can always reach out to me and I respond to such questions. I'm also involved in reviewing the accuracy of the data that we are collecting for the clinical studies. And all the data that we collect is anonymized. So I'm not seeing any the patient data that links it to an individual. It's all anonymized. Then at the study end, when the study is over and the treatment is over and all the data is being collected, then I'm also involved in reviewing the data, reviewing the results, analyze the results. I'm also writing the final study reports, and also am being involved in submission to regulatory agencies like such as the FDA or the European Medicines Agency.
My goodness, that sounds like a lot of responsibility, and we're so happy you and your team are doing this work. But tell us, what is the purpose of a clinical research study?
A clinical research study or clinical trial is designed to help medical researchers learn more about a disease, also hopefully to add new treatment options for people who have a disease in the future. Clinical studies evaluate the safety and efficacy of an investigational new drug for a disease or condition. So with safety, we mean, is a drug safe? Does it have no major side effects? And with efficacy, we mean, does it actually work? Does it treat the condition that it's supposed to treat? The result of clinical trials are being submitted to regulatory agencies such as the Food and Drug Administration to help them decide whether such a drug is safe and works, and whether such drug, if it works and is safe, can be made available to patients.
Thank you. And we've heard a little bit about Zephyrus before. What is Zephyrus 2 evaluating?
So first, a comment on the name Zephyrus. It's an unusual name, isn't it? Zephyrus actually comes from ancient Greek mythology. It's the name of a god of the winds. It's the name of the god of the west winds. The west winds are also the gentle breezes of the spring. So it's an interesting allusion to the disease that we study, and hopefully the treatment that we can offer. So the Zephyrus program consists of 2 studies. The first study, Zephyrus 1, has actually already finished patient recruitment. The second one, Zephyrus 2, is still actively recruiting worldwide, including in the US. We are just taking off in the US with the study. The Zephyrus studies are testing Pamrevlumab, which is an investigational drug in patients with IPF. It's tested in IPF patients who are not currently taking the approved IPF treatments. So they are not currently taking OFEV or Esbriet. That can either be because a patient had to stop these treatments. Usually they have to stop these treatments because of side effects. Or we also offer the study to patients who made an informed decision. They prefer not to start OFEV or Esbriet because of the known side effects. So the objective of the Zephyrus program is to test whether Pamrevlumab is effective and safe to administer as a standalone therapy to IPF patients. Also, I want to just make one comment on the overall study design. So this study is a randomized placebo-controlled study, meaning patients are being randomly assigned to receive either Pamrevlumab, which again is an investigational new drug, or an inactive placebo control. So because nobody knows whether they are on active drug or on an inactive placebo, what the study has built in is that a patient who is getting worse, the study doctor has the option to restart or start the patient back on Esbriet or OFEV if there is a clinical need. And then again, that's all just based on how the patient is doing overall in the study on blinded study treatment. So they have all the study doctors have that option as a fallback if a patient is not doing well on blinded study treatment.
I've heard that the Zephyrus Pamrevlumab is a kinder, gentler antifibrotic, if that's okay for me to say, but can you give a few more details about what Pamrevlumab is?
Sure. Yeah, and I know it's a bit of a mouthful to say it, and for me sometimes too. So first, the MAB at the end, the MAB stands for monoclonal antibody. So Pamrevlumab is a type of a protein compound that you have to actually inject because it's a protein. So you have to give it as an infusion. It's a monoclonal antibody. A monoclonal antibody, monoclonal stands for it's a man-made protein, but an antibody, it is an antibody, and an antibody is like a human antibody that we as humans produce. We produce antibodies to fight infections. So a monoclonal antibody is like an antibody that we produce, but it's produced in the lab. This particular monoclonal antibody blocks a fibrotic or a pro-scarring agent that is kicked in with tissue injury. So with tissue injury, a certain scarring agent kicks in, and with IPF, it goes into kind of like an overdrive and leads to these excessive scarring reaction in the lung. And Pamrevlumab is blocking that scarring mediator. So it blocks this profibrotic or excessive scarring reaction that happens in the lung. Pamrevlumab is an investigational drug, as I mentioned. It has not been approved yet in any country, and there is of course no guarantee that it will work. But that's why we design our phase 3 program to test again whether Pamrevlumab is safe and effective in actually treating IPF, in alleviating the symptoms and maybe even reversing a bit that progressive scarring that happens in the lung. And hopefully, if the outcome is positive, then we can go to regulatory agencies, to the FDA, and see whether they would approve Pamrevlumab as a treatment for IPF patients, particularly for IPF patients who either had to stop the oral antifibrotics or do not want to start the oral antifibrotics.
That sounds so encouraging. And just to confirm, you are only looking for IPF patients to participate initially, right?
Right. So this study, we are looking specifically for IPF patients. We have inclusion criteria that describe how IPF, what criteria have to be met. We also have certain aspects are being assessed centrally. So for instance, all patients have to have an HRCT done at screening that is being assessed centrally by a central adjudicator to make sure that the pattern seen on HRCT is consistent with what is called usual interstitial pneumonia, which is a hallmark of IPF. Of course, in the future, let's say this drug works in IPF, then we have the option or the thought to maybe expand the indications to maybe other fibrosing interstitial lung diseases. And as I mentioned at the beginning, Pamrevlumab is also currently tested in 2 completely different diseases. One is called Duchenne muscular dystrophy, and the other one is actually a cancer diagnosis, a locally advanced pancreatic cancer. But IPF right now, we are focusing specifically on idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis.
This is such important information for our community, and we hope that some of our IPF patients will participate. Are there any costs associated with study participation?
No, so anything having to do with study participation, the study drug itself, the visits, any tests that are being done, lab, lung function tests, HRCT, all of that is being done without any cost. And then anything having to do with the patient having to travel to the study site, either gasoline, parking for parking, if public transportation is being used, train, so on, all of these expenses, travel expenses, are being paid for, as are things like food, if you have to eat somewhere, or if the travel is a long travel and you would like to actually stay overnight in a hotel, we would pay for all of that. It may sound cumbersome to having to travel so frequently to a site or for an infusion, but on the flip side, it actually gives a study team or a study doctor more opportunity to observe how a patient is doing overall, not only for the patient's IPF, but any other intercurrent illnesses or conditions. The one thing that we are not paying for, since that's part of standard of care, is if a patient has to be restarted on OFEV or Esbriet, we would not pay for that, because this would be part of just treating medical conditions, since we are not paying for medical conditions. But just anything having to do with the study is for free. We also, at the end of the blinded, placebo-controlled, randomized treatment phase, we are going to offer an open label extension where patients who have completed 48 weeks of blinded treatment can be offered participation in an open label extension where they would receive Pamrevlumab in an open label fashion. I am very hopeful that these 2 studies show positive results, so that there is a true alternative to IPF patients in their treatment options.
Thank you for this really, truly exciting news. And thank you, Dr. Poole, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks to FibroGen for supporting us in this Lessons Learned series. And thank all of you who joined us today to learn about this new Zephyrus 2 project. I hope to see you all next week. Bye-bye for now.